Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw, where you can listen to your favorite performers talk about their career, how they got started, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me at Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw on Instagram and also my main Broadway account at Broadway_corner for updates on new episodes. Hope you enjoy! Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. I am so happy you are here and I hope you're having a fantastic day. And today I'm speaking to someone who you might know from his viral YouTube videos, his work in the LA theater scene, or maybe you met him while seeing K-pop on Broadway or at Ham for Ham shows. It's Howard Ho! Hi Howard.
Hey,
So happy to have
hey
you
Ashley.
And for a little bio and background about Howard. So Howard Ho is a writer, composer, YouTuber, and Ovation-nominated sound designer, now based in New York City. Howard's YouTube channel, Howard Ho Music, is most widely known for the series How Hamilton Works, which explains how the music from the hit musical works. His videos have garnered millions of views, over 100,000 subscribers, and has been recognized by Lin-Manuel Miranda himself. And he received his BA in musicology and communications from the University of California at Los Angeles. And in 2002, he was an American Musicology Society Minority Travel Fellow. That's a lot of words. In 2015, he received his master's in professional writing from USC, where he was a stage and screen editor of Southern California Review, and he was selected at the Los Angeles Public Library's Allowed Reading Series as one of 10 writers from graduate writing programs from Southern California. And in 2014, he performed his poem Jeremy Linning in the USC Visions and Voices Poetry Slam with jazz musician Ron McCurdy. So hi Howard, so good to see you again.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of a blast from the past. You mentioned a lot of things that like most people don't talk about. So I'm like kind of like, whoa, that's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
And I'm like, you're from California, Obviously, I live in California, very close. I mean, you've worked at like East West Players, like Center Theater Group, like all the places that like I would have seen just from being in near LA. I was reading it. I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder like how much of your personal work like I had seen without even maybe noticing it, just because like my parents would always take me to see like shows in LA because it's the closest thing to Bakersfield. Yeah. It's obviously very cool.
yeah, yeah. I mean that's the cool thing. Like theater is such a great little tight community, and so the drama bookshop is like not that far from where I live, and they had a little table of like Asian American plays because it was the API Heritage Month. And I was like looking around, I'm like, oh, these playwrights are all my friends, and they're all like some of the shows I've actually worked on, and it's just like kind of cool that to know that like, yeah, like if you work long enough, in theater, you just start to know all these people and then start to work on shows that people have seen. So like I'm very grateful for that.
I mean, you're seeing so many Broadway shows now. Like it seems like almost every day you're going and doing something new or seeing a friend in something new. Like Once Upon a One More Time, you went to the first like the dress rehearsal, and then you were like you've seen it well like since then. Um, just to see your
Yeah.
friends or just it's the community that really just stays so strong. And so like at the beginning, like when you were little, when did you start becoming the multi-hyphenate that you are now, like writing, producing, like sound designing, creating? Like, did you always know that you wanted to be like create art and music for a living?
You know what? I always have loved music and specifically writing music. Like I think a lot of people they were forced to play piano or violin. Like my mom actually was my piano teacher,
Mm.
but since she wasn't like a professional piano teacher, like a lot of my time at the piano was unstructured, which meant I would literally just sit there and kind of like start to noodle around and compose stuff and be like, "Oh, I prefer the way this sounds." And it kind of became like the piano was my toy, in a way where other people were playing with like action figures or whatever, and like so it just became a way of expressing myself as a kid to the point where I did the high school musical when I was in high school, and it like changed my life. I mean, I remember this one assignment where it was like okay, we're all gonna like write essays about Lord of the Flies, or you could create like a concept album with different songs about Lord of the Flies. I'm like, I'm gonna do the album. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that I pulled an all-nighter, and I remember I cared so much about it. And it was like, but why? Like, who cares, right? It's just an assignment for class. But to me, that was like the one validation, these little bits of validation I had for my passion. But I still never thought I would do it professionally. I actually studied, like as you read, I studied musicology and communication, but I thought I was more of a journalist.
Hmm.
So I was gonna write about music or interview people, get kind of like what you're doing right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And which is great. I mean, being around it and stuff. But at a certain point, um, I just realized like that's not enough for me. Like I really want to be the person creating it and like be that kid I was creating music at the piano. Like that was just something I couldn't let go of. And so, people kind of say like it kind of chooses you. Like 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 if you just have to do it, like no matter what, then yeah, then you're probably meant to do it, right? And so that's a little bit of what happened. And through many, like I did a lot of day jobs that were not music related, but eventually I sort of got laid off of a day job, and rather than going like, "Oh, I'm so sad now," it's like, "Oh, I'm free. Like I can actually be that artist." And I didn't know how long that would last. I was like, "I'll just give it a year, maybe I'll find a day job after that year."
Yeah.
I have not looked for a day job since then. It's been what, 7 years or whatever, and that has been a huge gift, just knowing that I can create my own art, my own audience, like again with going being on YouTube or whatever. And so the opportunities now are just so much better, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
than before. That yeah, I can be that person now. Um, and also be a theater creator. So going into theater was a totally different story too. But yeah, just being in the industry, also being on YouTube, commenting on the industry, and also being a writer and writing stuff that is, that could be end up being. I don't know if I don't want to like presume I would be on Broadway, but just at theaters around the country. One of the musicals I wrote is actually being performed all around the country right now. It's a short musical that a lot of schools perform, and I get some money out of it, and I just get some satisfaction knowing that my work is out there. So that yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so cool because now like you said, you're a part of it. People know who you are and recognize your work if it's not just your YouTube videos or, things that you write and you put out on either Instagram or just commenting about other things. Like you get to still kind of be the journalist side of you too and like getting content and doing that side of it while also getting to be a part of it. I think that's kind of like what I do in terms of the media stuff is so there and it's something that's like very unique to me because most people my age or most actors my age do not do this. But then also being like, yeah, I'm going to go to school and try to be the person on the stage instead of just being the person on the side. It's like you can kind of do both, and I think that's very similar to what you do with your music. Is like you take your influence that you do have through the media and you kind of infuse it and do your own work, but then you're also doing like so much stuff on the side and doing so many projects that we haven't seen yet but it are always being done because the work never stops, and usually we just see the finished product but we don't see the entire process that yeah, it took to get there. So I just think that's really cool.
I admire you actually, because I'm like, if I had started when I was your age, like I just, I like you're so far ahead of the game that I'm like really excited to see where you can go. Cause literally, like I didn't even know that you sang and danced and whatever. And so learning that later, I'm like, oh, like this person can do everything, like anything that they want to do. Like what is the future? The future is yours, like the future standing right in front of you, which is a quote from K-pop,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, of course.
So like I'm just so excited, and And but people can start at any age. I think that that's also important to realize too.
Yeah.
But to know that you're getting there like right now, like so smart and like yeah,
Oh, no, thank
never
you.
never give up any of those things because sometimes people say like, no, you have to focus on this or that, and it's like, no, you don't. No,
Yeah.
you don't. You just be you.
Yeah.
Just be what you do.
I mean, even in my like choosing where I was going to go to college, I was like heavily considering just doing Manhattan, like going to Manhattan. But then I was like, no, like that's not, I don't want to be there just for my content stuff or podcasts or whatever. I'm like, no, I have to like, this is my investment in myself this time instead of just being like, I'm gonna go and interview everybody and always be around theater and see a million shows. I was like, no, I'm gonna take the different road this time just to like ensure that I do have that future. But thank you so much, Howard, for saying all that. That's very sweet of you. Yeah.
I mean it. I mean it. Yeah.
And then, well, how did you come up like starting your YouTube channel? Like if you go to the bottom, like you don't have, I mean, in a way, it's not like you have hundreds and hundreds of videos. It's like each video is very thought out, very well done. And it seems like you've been doing this for at least 7 years, like that you said. I mean, the Linsanity video was the first one. So like when did you start content creating? Because that's such a giant part of your life now.
I I never thought about it being like a content creator. I just thought, you know, I just like post stuff that was I was passionate about, right? And I think the thing with it was is that realizing that, oh, literally people are just posting themselves playing piano and they get all these views and stuff and they kind of get recognition as a musician. And I'm like, okay, well, I could use just some people like noticing what I do because then I could push that focus towards other stuff that I do. And so I just kind of thought of myself more as a musician than I thought of myself as like commenting on, you know, musicals and stuff. But what happened was I did a piano cover of Hamilton because I feel like I'm like not right about things a lot of times. Like I don't like make predictions or anything. But except for Hamilton, I knew Hamilton was going to be big from the moment, and this was like late 2014, before it was ever produced. And I read about it from Sondheim's book, you know, from all places. Sondheim wrote about Lin, saying that Lin is like so good at rap that he's gonna make rap like even for Alexander, like, and he said Alexander Hamilton musical is happening, and that Lin may be able to do something with rap that no one's seen. Cut to like me going like, holy crap, what is this? And I was already a big fan of Lin from In the Heights,
Yeah.
so I knew like like that sounds amazing. I went online immediately, and I was like, this is this is gonna be the biggest thing ever.
I mean,
And I
you were right. I don't know if you know, but it was like my like gateway into theater. Like most people's, it definitely. I mean, I was so young. I was like maybe 12 or something. But yeah, that was like my entry to theater was Hamilton.
wow, being 12 and having that that's
Or
that's
maybe I
big
was
for
10
me.
because I was like, I don't know, maybe like, or even more, it was like 9 or 10, like just very, very little, and I had no idea about anything.
I mean, for me growing up, that was Rent, right? Like Rent was the thing. It was like, wow, this doesn't sound like anything else.
Yeah.
Um, but I just for you know I think I at that point I had studied musicals a lot because I was writing musicals, and so I was like, I just know that this is just like it's so solid, it's so smart, so funny, so moving.
Mhm.
And then so I created a piano cover. I'm like, oh, people are gonna be so impressed that I could do a piano cover by myself, you know. Still thinking with that mentality of like being a musician, and then it didn't do that well. I was like, oh, I'm not a great singer, you know. I'm like, okay, so that maybe I shouldn't do that. But then I did a piano tutorial where I was like, oh, I could teach people how to play piano and they could just watch me and learn, and like that did a little better. And then I realized that as I was teaching how to play piano, that I was actually talking about why it was written that way, not just like how to do it, but like why it was done that way.
Hmm.
And so from there, I actually just like started thinking like I could talk about the composition of it and
Yeah.
going back to my college days, like, oh, I used to analyze music like for school and like I was really good at it. Like I won awards for it, kind of like you said in my intro, like I won awards for this. Maybe I should do that. Like I thought it was a useless degree. And this goes back to what I was saying about like don't limit yourself because I limited myself. I thought it's a useless degree. I got to be serious and focus on, things that'll get me employed.
Yeah.
No. Like whatever you're good at, really pay attention to that because I guarantee you like the way that you do it will be completely unique to you and that somebody will pay you for that.
Hmm.
So in essence, yeah, I started focusing on explaining Hamilton. And I thought I would just do like one video and get it done. But then now it's like, a dozen videos where I like pick apart all these things and it's that completely changed my life. Um, so yeah, to this day, it's like probably the thing I'm proudest of is just like, yeah, I'm like the Hamilton,
You're like
Hamilton
the
guy.
Hamilton guy. Hamilton music guy who, I mean, I remember during the pandemic, like that was one of the videos that I would just watch like with my dad or with my family, and we just watch and be like, how do you even like see these different things within the song? I'm like, that is just insane. It's so detailed in the fact that you pull things out of like something that would just like someone would listen to it and just be like okay, but then you like take it apart and you analyze it, and you just like see all of the different things behind the music, and I'm like that's crazy and so cool that you're doing it because obviously not everyone could do that. I'm sure barely anyone could do that, and so to have that like on YouTube where people can just be like, oh yeah, I see where that is, like I would have never recognized that myself, but like seeing it, I guess, explained and put out in front of me, then you're like, oh, okay, I see exactly what they were trying to do there, and it gives a more of an understanding for people who maybe aren't trained in music and like you are, where you got your degree from like UCLA, USC, and then you're using those skills now in your career and really doing so much with it. I mean, they've gone like crazy viral. Like, yeah, Lynn talking about like you all the time too, and like Twitter, Instagram, and like being like, "What do you think, Howard?" or just stuff like that. It's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I hadn't even met Lynn for, like, many years until, like, I moved to New York, but I wonder, like, does he like what I do? And, like, could we be friends? And, like, and just cut to now, it's like, yeah, I've met him a few times, and it's just been, like, really wonderful because as much as he is, like, Mr. like musical theater now, that he's still very approachable and like you can still just have like a normal conversation. And he's still creating like great stuff. I mean, Encanto, like, and I did videos on Encanto that have been some of like my best videos because he's still in his prime. Like Hamilton, well, actually, In the Heights was like just the beginning.
Yeah.
Hamilton like isn't even the peak. Like he's still like growing his powers. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, the Little Mermaid now, he's out with the Little Mermaid. Like, he's doing so much. Like I said, it's like we don't see the process. We just keep seeing him putting out new things. And it's Lynn. So I actually have yet to meet him because the only time I've been in, like, I guess you'd say the same room as him was I was at Comic-Con, and he was a part of some sort of panel in the giant hall that you have to wait like forever to get into. And he was like, what, like 20, 30 feet away from me. I was like, hi, Lynn. Like, this was a few years ago. Like, the last time I went to Comic Con, he was there, and I was just like, Lynn, like, hi. But yeah, no, he's great. And obviously, it's so cool that you've been able to meet him so many times. And, like, he recognizes you as someone who is very, very good at what they do. And, is able to take what he did and just like talk about it in such an interesting way. With like your voiceovers and all that that cool stuff. And like with all
Yeah.
your content creation, like what is the coolest thing you've been able to either attend or do because of being you're kind of like a Broadway influencer now.
I guess so. I mean, I never thought of myself that way. I just literally thought like, oh, I just create. I thought of myself more as like a like I was maybe still in that journalism mode of like, oh, I'm covering theater or I'm taught or
Mhm.
I or I'm an academic like analyzing it. But in reality, yeah, there is like this influencer thing. I'm more of an influencer, I think, because I'm friends with some influencers. So one of my good friends is B-Way Show,
Mhm.
Shoshana, who I think you've met.
Yeah, we met at yeah,
Um
K-pop.
yeah, yeah. So Shoshana is one of these people who I was like, I knew I had to collaborate with her, like just because I saw her when I was in LA. I was like, this is the person who's like busting, busting their ass, like getting all this great footage for free, right? You don't
Ah,
have to
yeah.
pay to see her stuff. And I'm just like, this, if I could be friends with this person or just like hang out with them, like it'd be so fun to just like view theater through their eyes.
Mhm.
And when I got here, like I was able to talk with Shoshana, and to the point where I accompanied her to several different events because she needs people to help her with like camera work
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
and so this past season I've been able to go to the Obie Awards, the Lortel Awards, and next week I'll be attending the Drama Desk Awards,
Mhm, mhm.
and which is crazy because to me these awards, I mean, like literally, it's attended by the entire Broadway community.
Yeah.
But even more than that, like I get to attend it as like somebody who's working. Like Shoshana will interview them directly, and so I get this insider view of that through Shoshana, really, that I wouldn't otherwise have. And I don't even think the Drama Desk Awards are like public because it's
I
gonna
don't
be at Sardi's.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, because I don't think I've ever like watched the I don't know if it's public or not, but it's so awesome that you're going. I mean, it's one of the definitely one of like the big awards like that everyone kind of waits to see who gets and everyone wants to go to.
Yeah, I think they've already announced the winners, but that the winners are there then gonna be like have kind of a ceremony.
Oh, I see.
But it just just to be in the room with them, just to kind of see them, kind of like as normal people. But the best award definitely was the Obie Awards because it's more of like the off Broadway community, and you really see them be there for the love of it rather than it's not like commercial or anything. It's
Yeah.
really about like and it's not competitive. No one's like trying to like beat anyone else. Like everyone is just they've already won their thing and they didn't win over someone else. And everyone's just having a great time and just loving the art form, which I like cried so many times during that show. And I was seated like 3 seats away from Jason Robert Brown, and that kind of thing. It's just like you get to kind of experience theater up close and personal. Like I feel like Tony Awards like would be super fun to go to. I don't think I'll get to, but it's just going to be different because it's going to be more about the commercial, like
Yeah.
trying to advertise Broadway, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and people are going to be a little further away, right? But yeah, that I would say that the Obie Awards it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like just any kind of event where it's like the community, it's just, I mean, it seems like so much fun. I wish I could like, yeah, just go to different things. It's like when you're so far away, it's kind of, it seems again so far away, but then I'm so happy for you that now you're there and you're like, you're living in the city, you're doing everything. You get to go to all these cool award shows. And like, also like you saying that you were sitting a few seats away from Jason Robert Brown actually reminded me when I was at the final show of K-pop. I don't know if I told you, but I was sitting right behind David Henry Hwang, like literally
Oh
right
yeah.
behind him. And so like once he sat down and like settled down, I was like, hi, like, hi, my name's I met you like years ago, and then I've met your daughter through like Leah Chang. I'm like, hi. And so I got a picture. I was like, you're amazing and all that stuff. But it was just, it was crazy to be sitting behind like a legend, especially K-pop, because he was gonna do that panel and stuff. It was just, it reminded me so much of that, like you sitting, being next to all these people. I'm like, that was one of the moments where it's like, oh my God, like crazy.
I I have kind of a funny David Henry Wong story. So, yeah, that like he's another one of my heroes. Like, obviously, like Tony Award winner, like everything, right? But the thing with David Henry Wong is like I actually did interview him back when I was like doing more journalism,
Hmm.
and he used to have this line that he said where he was like, Asian people should be allowed to play Asian characters, right? And that I still think that that's true. I think that yeah, we can't have yellow face. But the way he said it was that like James Earl Jones is not going to play George Washington. So,
Oh,
by the same token, and it was just funny that he said that because later on, like Hamilton comes out, and then you do have, you know, people of color playing George Washington, including my good friend Marcus Choi, who's
yeah.
Korean.
No, I actually saw Marcus like years
Oh
ago.
my god!
Yeah, I did see him.
Yeah, right. Like so, like not that many people that I know have seen it, but like, yeah, amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a
So
very, very interesting thing that David said. You're just like, well, look what happened.
well, he used to say this like in several different I remember there was like a soft power event in
Mm.
LA, and so I came up to him afterwards and I got a picture and everything, and I was like, "So David, remember that thing you said about George Washington?" And then David was like, "Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that anymore." Like, it's just like really because David's very smart. Like he's very like he knows he kind of knows how to talk about his work like so well and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna update that.
He's like, yeah, that was, he thought then, but doesn't mean to, he doesn't have to carry with his whole life. He's, he can adapt and change like everyone. So, but that's a very, very fun story. I mean, I did see Soft Power too, and like, that was where I met him for the first time. Was that some sort of thing there too? And like, I was so little, too, like, I don't even remember a single thing because I think I must have seen Conrad Ricamora because I was like, I don't know, I can't remember. Because I mean, seeing him in Little Shop years later, I was like, okay, this is crazy. Like,
Oh
uh,
wow.
yeah, and I was like, so I mean, I love making little connections in my mind through like doing this or doing this. I'm sure you do that too with just like your friends or people that you see in the theater community, and it's fun. It's just pure fun to be like, oh my gosh, I saw him in this, and now I'm seeing him in this, and then I'm doing this or whatever. And like I saw that you did that video too with Marcus Troy, like on your YouTube of like interviewing him when they were at the Segastrom. I mean, that's where I saw it. So I'm like, it's cool and crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's so funny because I when I see you, I'm like, oh, you've always been part of this community, but like, yeah, no, you were you were a kid, like, you know, just a few years ago, you were just like a completely different person with like less experience. So like, it's amazing to see someone like you and just be like, you belong here, like you came fully formed, like no, 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 like she really she really was like, you know, like a new person here, and I just want to welcome you. I don't know, like
Thank you.
I feel like you do belong. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, and it's so interesting too, talking about so much of the LA stuff too, because I'm sure when people see me, they see the playbills and they're like, oh, pure Broadway, like only Broadway. But it's like, no, I've seen tons of tours. I've seen so much LA theater. Like I've been going to East West Players for years. I just saw On the Side of the World. And then I just saw Coleman 72 too, like few weeks ago with Julie. I'm like, I'm here. I know the LA theater scene a little bit. Not like too much because LA is freaking huge. But it's like I'm not just like I haven't only seen things over there, and I don't. it's like there's so much here too, and it's fun, and it's just great to try and talk about it.
Okay.
Well, can you talk about moving to New York City because your partner Julie booked K-pop, which is, very important to both of us. And what was it like finally moving to a city where you've probably been dreaming of this for years, and now you're there and you're thriving, you're doing so much. And are you ever going to leave?
Great question. I mean, yeah, it is the dream. I have to say, before I moved to New York, I had been going to New York every year for like 7 years or something. So I was very comfortable with the idea of like, yeah, it's just like another trip to New York, but I'm gonna go for a little longer. And what happened was like Julie booked K-pop, and literally, literally, I left it up to Julie because Julie has had was having a lot of options with her career,
Mhm.
and I was like, Julie, like, I leave it up to you. Like, K-pop is a huge opportunity, and but you have a lot of stuff that you're doing in LA as well. And Julie is like, no, like I have to do K-pop. Like when other time can we have this?
Yeah.
And so that's what I was rooting for. And so I was like, 100%. But the way we did it was crazy. We literally like sold or got rid of or threw away or donated half our stuff.
Oh my
We,
gosh.
but it was a lot of stuff. We had accumulated over our whole life. We had spent our entire life in LA,
Mhm.
up to that point, and we just were like, you know what? We're just gonna get rid of this. Kind of like a Marie Kondo moment. And then we
Yeah.
packed the rest of it into this like cargo van, and we drove across the country, and we
Oh my
just
gosh.
sold our cars, we let go of our apartment, everything. And our families are all in LA. Like we just went off into this unknown thing. But it was so emotional for me, just going like, this is the dream. I've always wanted to write musicals. Like I said, I was in my high school musical, but even more recently I was writing a lot of musicals. Like I had written um like 3 or 4 musicals up to this point, just being in LA and just going like, well, if I went to New York, people would actually care more about what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And I think for Julie as well, it's like she's been doing all these like TV and local theater jobs, but it's like to get on that national stage, like, oh, that means Broadway, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So we made that choice. And when we drove across country, like it was like we didn't have any like major issues. I thought like this could be it. If we like lose our stuff, that's it. We have nothing.
Yeah.
But thankfully we got across the country. But the second we landed in New York, we like parked right in front of the apartment, and we got the keys, and we're about to move our stuff in. And as we like open the doors to like move stuff, open the doors of the van to take stuff out, this huge torrential rain came and just like
Oh
just
my
like completely inundated us.
oh my
And we
god.
were like, what's happening? Like it was really a sign of like, I didn't know if it like is a good sign or a bad sign. It's just like it was just rain. Thankfully the rain kind of stopped and we moved. But it was like a very New York welcome.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh and it was like pretty much nonstop since then. Like Julie, it was in rehearsals constantly for K-pop, and constantly just like trying to, like it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Not only being in the show, but being in a new city, being
Yeah.
in a place like she didn't have any of her regular thing, like no car, no sort of like the space we have is like twice as small,
Mhm.
fitting, and 2 times more expensive, and so just the challenges were like so different. But I think ultimately, for me, I wasn't working because I was like there supporting Julie.
Mhm.
I was still working on YouTube, but like I didn't have a boss. I was my own boss.
Yeah.
So I was out there having a great time, and like I think I feel a little guilty because like, oh, Julie's like working so hard, and I'm like, "Oh, I saw another show today, and you're hanging out with Shoshana, and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but so ultimately, I think my experience was a little better than Julie. Just, I
Mm,
mean, Julie obviously being on Broadway is like I have no idea what that's like, but just in terms of being around it and kind of living the dream of meeting your heroes and you know just having you know like just being able to like get out of bed, walk across the street, and there I am like meeting whoever, Lynn.
no, that's what I
um,
felt like when I was in the city for a month, like doing my NYU program. I felt that exact same way, where I could just get on a train, go 2 blocks, like 2 stops up, and then be there, and then be in the center of everything. Yeah.
yeah, so it's been fantastic for me. I think my plan is to not leave. I mean, ultimately, I can't leave until I make my mark, until I do something. I actually have stuff that I'm working on coming up in New York. Like, I wrote a short play that's going to be at the Samuel French off Broadway short play festival.
Mm.
Um, and which is it's kind of like a competition, but literally they chose like 30 plays out of like 1,000 plays or something,
Oh
and
wow.
mine was one of them. And then you do kind of like these play readings, and then of those 30, like I think six will be chosen for publication with Samuel French. So I'm just like, oh, like this is, you know, people are gonna get to see my work, and maybe I'll even get published.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, but Julie's also a director, and so Julie's gonna direct that play.
Mm.
So it's like that's when I say it's the dream. It's like, yeah, like that play I originally wrote to be in LA or whatever, but to have it here where like it could be published, it could be seen by all these people, producers or whoever, or just my peers, just like fellow playwrights, like that's so huge to be in that conversation. Part of your work, part of that world. Like I'm like Ariel, right? Um, but yeah, so that's happening. I have like another play of mine is like a finalist at the O'Neill Festival,
Mhm.
um, which is one of like the biggest festivals for playwrights.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that kind of stuff. It's like, actually, you know what? I don't know if I should say that because it hasn't been announced yet. It'll be announced soon. You're not going to post this for a while, right?
Depends.
Okay,
But
whatever,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we'll
No,
get
no one,
it.
no one's gonna be upset, I don't think. But
It's okay.
but yeah, no, it's like things like that are just like I know that I'm part of the community because I keep you know getting these things that like keep telling me like keep going, right? And that's what Lynn has told me too. He's like, keep going, like keep creating. And so even though K-pop ended, it's really sad,
Mhm.
but I know that like I'm on the right track, and Julie's on the right track. Julie was just in a reading
Mhm.
here in New York. So you saw her in Coleman. That same director, who's like one of the greatest Asian American directors,
Yeah.
cast her in New York as well. So a lot of people got to see her do that outside of K-pop. She's like again, there are so many opportunities that in New York that I cannot give up on, especially since we just got here.
Yeah.
It's still been less than a year. We're coming up on a year in July.
Yeah, no, and it's so great for you and for Julie because I mean again she was just back in LA just for a little bit for the play and it's cool that she's working so much like I feel like she's just always doing something else and yeah it's so great. I'm so excited for you and her and she was saying she like about she just likes being in LA or likes being in New York. I'm like they're both so great just to be places that you can work in and make your life professionally. And again, with all your projects coming up, like that's amazing how people are going to see it. It's like when if you keep doing good work, like eventually the right people are going to see it and something, is going to happen from that. So I'm just so excited for both you and Julie just making it, pursuing your careers in New York City. It's great. Yeah. And like since you said you had a little bit of a better experience just being in New York during the K-pop era, like what was it like for you to be with Julie like throughout this process? You attended the show a bunch of times. How many times did you actually see it?
So I counted 18 times,
Mhm.
which is not the most, but it's up there.
Definitely, yeah.
And it definitely I mean, I love seeing the show, like just walking into that theater. I mean, you've experienced that. And the thing with it is that when you're in it, like when Julie was like deep in it, it's really hard to see what that experience is like from the outside. But for Julie, I know that it was a lot of work because there's so many changes that were happening.
Yeah,
There's so many rehearsals, like literally they rehearse and perform on the same day, and like you have to keep it straight in your head, like, oh, what we rehearsed is not what we're performing because it's different versions.
crazy.
Um, and so I know it's like a marathon. Like like theater in LA is kind of a sprint because you rehearse, you rehearse, you rehearse, you perform, and then you're done.
Yeah.
With K-pop, it was like you rehearse, you rehearse, you rehearse, and then you're in tech and you're in tech and you're still rehearsing and you're in tech, and then you open. Like it was literally I think 6 weeks of previews,
Mm.
and this is after like months of rehearsing.
Yeah, it was long.
So
It was very long.
yeah, this is not normal, for especially for people from LA, but even for Broadway, it was like a pretty long time to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
usually it's like 2, 3 weeks of previews, and then you open. This was like a 2 months pretty much of previews, which is awesome, but like insane for the cast because once you open, then you can like settle down, and then again, like they didn't quite get to do that, you know? Like swings
mm,
didn't get their dedicated rehearsals, like costumes were still being made. It's different when, especially with K-pop. Yeah. No, and like since you kind of got to, you didn't get to be in the room all the time, but like you were a big part of just being at the show all the time. And so what did it mean to you to kind of be a part of such an important show for our community?
I I just felt pride so much, and I mean I'm not Korean, but just as an Asian American person and as just a human who likes seeing people represent themselves, like there's something really beautiful about that. And I remember, so my first time seeing it was at the Invited Dress, and there's just something amazing about being like one of the first people to see it on Broadway, and I just like tears of like it's such a good show. It's
Mhm.
so like authentic to K-pop and to being sort of Korean American and being between like two cultures and trying to like make it in America and that whole thing. And the fact that my partner is in it and she's
Yeah.
like, one of the first people you see in the show, and it's just like um it was so much pride, it was so much joy. I'm actually wearing this shirt,
Oh,
spread Asian
yeah.
joy, because I think, and I think you know this too, that like we're used to shows like Miss Saigon that are about, kind of tragedy and kind of the horrors of being Asian, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's all valid, but where is the joy? And so we finally had a show that was about the joy. um and I think just seeing it that first time, I was like, this is a hit show. Like, I
Mhm.
don't care what anyone says. Now, knowing it's a hit show and selling tickets is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But I just know in my heart that like everyone who sees this is gonna love it. But unfortunately, they all didn't get a chance to see it.
Yeah.
Um, but to me, it will always come down to that invited dress of like, they did it, they did it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and going back, I wanted to keep feeling that same feeling and to really, soak it in because when else, like how many more times can how many more times can you get that feeling? At the time I thought we would have months of being able to experience that.
Yeah.
Um, and Julie even told me like, "Why are you coming so much?" Like, you're gonna get to come back. It's like, but I mean, I'm just sitting at home while the magic is like happening 2 blocks over there. Like, why?
Yeah, yeah. No, what I mean, thank God you went so much. Like honestly, just think like I mean, it's great that you were able to go so much. It wasn't like, oh, the lost times of that I didn't get to. It's like, okay, I saw it so many times. You had to like really, really take it in, and you saw it throughout the entire process. I mean, I've heard, and people have told me about like different changes, different song orders, different, just like everything, and I'm like, that is just crazy that they were doing that from day to day, and you witnessed it all pretty much. From the final dress to the closing show. I mean, what were you feeling like those last two performances? Because that was like those are my first time seeing it, and obviously your final time seeing it as well, where but you've seen everything that it was before.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that those final 2 times were so emotional. Just knowing that, yeah, it's just gonna go away forever. Maybe not forever. Maybe it'll come back. Knock on wood. But like this version of it at least. And I think what was amazing with those last 2 times was just seeing the community come out. Like, so that the penultimate time, right? We had that big rally,
Yeah.
before the show, and to me, it was like this is what it should have been from day one.
Oh yeah.
Like I looked around, I'm like, this is exactly what this show is, but just for whatever reason they couldn't get it together. Like people were confused about what the show was or whatever. It's like, no, once they know what this show is, like this is what is going to be like every night, like people
Mhm.
cheering just because they love it, just because they love the music and these stars. So that was so emotional to me that they got that recognition. And then obviously the last performance, like kind of like you said, like David Henry Wong was there. They had a whole panel of really notable people, and in the audience there was a lot of notable people.
Oh yeah.
And so it was just like one of those events where it's like this is what it should have been all along. And that audience was like was more, it was probably more Asian American at that final show than any performance I had ever seen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's what it should have been. But like seeing the way it developed and whatever, like it was such a long time period that like I think I lost that perspective along the way because I was like I had this mentality of like I gotta fight for this, like especially when the review came out, it's like I have to fight and I have to like do this and do that and do whatever. And I think ultimately I didn't want to do any of that. No one wanted to. We just wanted to experience that joy, and that the final 2 shows, it was just an expression of that joy. And just even sitting there watching it, I was like, this can't be the last time. It just feels so real and so like, like it just feels like this needs to go on for forever.
Hmm.
And I couldn't believe it. It was surreal. And then obviously the next day, actually the next day after the final performance, I went with Julie back to the theater to like pick up her stuff.
Hmm.
And it was so emotional because it was like our last time seeing the stage, seeing the dressing rooms. And Julie was showing me like, oh, like during when I go backstage, I'm like here and they're doing a quick change.
Uh-huh.
And it was just like, oh, like you know all of that, all of those memories, it's just like it's just, that's what it is. It's part of history now.
Hmm.
And so that was truly bittersweet. um Moment to see, like the day after the show.
Yeah.
and it still didn't hit me. I think we're all numb to the idea that like, yeah, we're not coming back.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I know for me it was really rough too because I was like, I just discovered this thing and then now it's gone because before I saw the show, I mean, of course I didn't know anything about Julie's character Ruby. Like how could I know anything about it? I'm like I didn't even know what the show is really about. I just knew that it was like, all this like all of it was really cool, everything that I had seen because again, like K-pop, they did have that like invited kind of like press thing where the Playbill or whatever theater they got to like take videos and stuff. I don't know if you were there, but I'm like that's how I obviously discovered the show just from like those little clips. But again, it was like people didn't really get what it was about. They were like, "What is this? Is it just a concert? Is it like what is happening?" And so when I finally saw it, I was like, "Oh, okay, I see exactly what this is." Like I know what Julie's character Ruby is now. I know what like Mui's character like why she's her character. Like she's not just some superstar. She has like so much, like history and things that she's trying to work through. And it's like that could have been advertised too. Like, but I didn't know anything about it until I was there. And I was like, that is exactly kind of what went wrong too. Is like, I don't think people, especially with the title, I think even people just didn't quite get it. And I was just really, really sad that it wasn't, afforded the opportunity to really show itself to people until like afterwards. I mean, even yeah, it was really confusing to me. I was like, what happened? I don't understand. I'm like, this is really, really weird. And I mean, especially with the review, I read it, I was like, what, like I was kind of confused because obviously I hadn't seen it yet. And then I saw the show and I was like, what are you talking about? I don't understand anything that you're saying. Like, and I want to say like you did a full annotation of the article the review, and I mean, I read it and I was like, this is perfect. Like this is exactly what everyone in our community was feeling and thinking. And I mean, this isn't really a question, but just thank you for that because I think it was such an important thing to everyone who was a part of it or had seen it, who loved it, who saw that and was like, "Yeah, what happened with that review? Like, Howard, you wrote all of that stuff," and I was like, "Yeah, I agree with everything. It was really powerful."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that review was, it pains me to say it because you're like, reviews shouldn't really matter. Like, if a show is for the audience and like the audience loves it, who cares what the review says, right? But the reality is like the New York Times review still has an enormous power, and I think to a degree that's like really unfair because
Yeah,
literally in that review, right? Jesse Green's like, "Oh, like I don't really know anything about K-pop." It's like, okay, why are you reviewing it then? Like,
yeah,
can we get like somebody who's knowledgeable? Like, is that maybe in the job description?
yeah, yeah,
um, so to me, it was just an obvious like I'm just gonna tear this thing apart because I don't understand it and I don't, and I get it, like K-pop is not a traditional musical,
yes,
but not every show needs to be a traditional show. Like some shows are traditional and some shows are progressive and pushing the art form forward.
yeah,
And so the idea to me that you're just gonna judge a show based on these like old standards of what a show should be rather than looking to the future of like, oh yeah, like maybe there are genres of music that we're completely ignoring. Maybe there are entire races of people and, demographics of people that we're ignoring. What about young people who like love K-pop? Like they're not represented in all these shows that have musical styles that are not things they grew up with. And
hmm,
so to me, I'm just like, as a composer myself, I'm like, I care so much about this art form, but I want the art form to survive. I studied classical music, in musicology, and like at a certain point, classical music was just not that well known by people anymore because it just didn't fit in with, it didn't update itself.
no, yeah, it just
Like,
stayed the same instead of adapting.
yeah, you just hear the same symphonies over and over, and which is fine. I love those symphonies, but you also need to adapt and update so that the art form stays relevant. And for me, like that's what K-pop does. It's like now people know Broadway is not just, these shows from the 50s or whatever. It's like it's now. So to me the review was just like it just came at it from a completely, kind of mean-spirited, unfair, and frankly incompetent viewpoint. They,
Yeah.
they literally said it like, I don't know anything about this. Great, like you can sit down now, but I think thankfully when I posted that, the annotations, there's so much support, so many people just going like, thank you for saying this. And
Yeah.
I wasn't even gonna say anything, but it was really seeing like Abraham saying stuff,
Yeah.
Abraham in the cast, and seeing John Yee say stuff, just that gave me the courage to be like, well, they're standing up for themselves, but like they need more than that. They need
We need
people who,
support. Yeah. More support.
yeah. And so over that time period, I just worked on that, and that's something I'm very proud of too, because I got to be a part of that conversation, and and to this day, like, a lot of people still like, kind of like what you said, like thank me for that. And hopefully that fight's not over, because Jesse Green's still there and he's still writing
Still
these
reviewing
unfair,
things. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So no, but I think to me that's like one of the benefits I was able to provide, was that on YouTube I'm an analysis guy, right?
Yeah. You
So
are.
I could just do my analysis on this review.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a journalist too. It's like you're
Yeah.
fully qualified to talk about this and do that. And I think that's why people responded to it so well, was it was like you do have the education and the credentials and everything to back up everything that you're saying. Whereas Jesse Green writing about K-pop, he didn't in that situation. I'm like, I'm sure he's, a great reviewer with some specific things. This one, like, just was not the best. I'm like, where is an Asian person who can, or an Asian K-pop lover who can come and review this? Like, I mean, K-pop made me start liking actual K-pop. Like, I mean, I'm like, I consider myself like a Blink now. I love Blackpink and like all these different things. It's like, yeah, it does introduce you to a new genre that you didn't know before. Um, and just with the review, it seemed like maybe he didn't quite know what he was talking about in that one. And that he just wasn't the person that should have been talking about it in the first place, because it wasn't like K-pop is for everyone, but it's it was not he is not the target audience that they were trying to reach. They're trying to reach people like you or like me or like every other Asian person that was sitting in the audience on that final day. It's like that's the audience. That's the target audience. Um
Well, I
Jesse
think I
Green,
think
it's different.
I mean, I think that with Jesse Green, it's like people have blind spots. Like I think Jesse Green said some things that were very racially biased. But that doesn't mean that he can't write a good review for like a show that is centering on Black people.
Yeah.
Because I think Jesse Green has certain perspectives, and he's like, oh, like he understands the Black perspective in a way that allows him to review it or connect to it or whatever. I don't know that he has that connection to Asian or Asian American culture. I haven't seen it, and so I just think it's like a blind spot, and we all have blind spots. There's nothing wrong with having a blind spot, but when you do have that blind spot, maybe just think about like, oh, I shouldn't like be so mean about something I know nothing about, right? Because I'm literally like a guest here. I'm like, a tourist in this show. So maybe I'll just like listen to what people are telling me, or have an open mind. Because I do think that a lot of older people or white people or people that have no connection to K-pop or Asian American culture still love the show, because it's just a good show. I mean, it's like a star is born, right?
Like, do you have a dream show to work on? Obviously, you're doing so much of your own stuff, but if you had to like choose, would there be something that you might want to do in really any of your multiple professions?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it, I think as a person who writes shows, that like I think my dream is to, yeah, have one of those shows, get produced. Actually, one of my plays is being produced in October in LA. So
I won't
that
be
is
here anymore. I
that.
was like, I won't be here anymore.
I know. Ah, dang it.
Yeah,
But
but my
it's
family can go see it.
okay. Yeah, it's not like a huge theater or anything, but it's like my first like big full length production, and so I'm like really
Mm.
proud of that. But yeah, I mean, I think my dream is to see one of my musicals get produced. Maybe I'm on Broadway. It's just it feels like so funny to say that, because it's like, oh, that's like, is that possible? But it is possible. I know it's possible. And so, that's that always remains the dream of like seeing that happen. But yeah, just like working on like I got to work on The Great Leap in Alaska this past year.
Mm, hmm.
I don't know if you know that play at all. It's by
I need to look
yeah.
it up now.
Yeah, it's by Lauren Yee, and who's, amazing playwright. She wrote Cambodian Rock Band, which is kind of a musical.
Hmm.
And she's also writing the book right now for the Wrinkle in Time musical.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a person to watch out for. But I got to work on her play, The Great Leap, and I've even told her this. I'm like, you wrote a musical. There's no music in it, but you wrote a musical, because The Great Leap is so like they have all these lines that are repeated. It kind of feels like they're like melodies.
Oh,
So,
uh-huh.
and it's so authentic. It's about like a basketball playing Chinese kid in the 80s.
Oh, I
So
see.
speaking of Linsanity, like it's kind of she like dedicates it to like Linsanity. But like there's certain dream plays like that where I'm a huge fan of that writer or that play or that musical. I mean, it'd be fun to like be involved in Hamilton somehow. Like I'm not
Oh, yeah,
involved
yeah.
in it, but it would be fun to like, hey, can you like be the bullet today? It's like, yeah, I'll be the bullet. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Eddie, Eddie Lee,
Yeah, yeah, of
from
course.
K-pop, he went back to being in Hamilton. So
Yeah, no, we ran into him on our last trip, like on the street. We had just finished seeing Kimberly Akimbo, and then Eddie was like coming from Hamilton, and then we just ran into him on the street, and like, hey, like, it's
yeah,
really.
and
He had just gotten back into Hamilton, yeah.
I've never seen him in Hamilton. So I was like contacting him like, hey, like tell me when you're on or whatever. And he's in the ensemble right now, so I think he's on like quite a lot. But
Yeah,
yeah, so it's just like that kind of thing. It's just like, yeah, being part of these shows that I love, absolutely. But hopefully one day being a part of a show that I created.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always think about it too, like you said, being a part of like Hamilton. I always think about how like it would be so much fun if different shows would be kind of like a brand ambassador. You could be like a ambassador for a specific show. Like obviously I would have been like you wanted to be like a K-pop ambassador, just like, taking the time to really like work together to support with an influence online or whatever, if like you were being a Hamilton ambassador, whatever, of just like those different things that are, could be possible. I'm like, it's so much fun. I'm like, then it would be something fun to work on and something it would help to really, really sell something to anyone online who could be wanting to see a Broadway show. It's like there's endless possibilities.
I think Hamilton is like so big that like they
That
don't
one doesn't
really.
quite need it as much as other ones, but
Yeah.
still be very fun.
Yeah, no, I would have a blast. And yeah, I mean you saw in my video with Marcus that I was able to like be on stage and kind of check out the stage, and like that was so great. I mean, it's like and being able to see Marcus in it. Like I think
Yeah.
honestly, when I saw Hamilton, I was like, okay, so like Philippa Sue's in there, that kind of thing. But like like I would love to see an Asian Hamilton, right, or Asian Burr, and there have been now. Like I actually saw Asian Hamilton with my friend Mark De La Cruz,
Oh, yeah,
who
yeah, of course, yeah.
he covers that role, and I've seen Marcus, and the there's like a promise to like Lynn's vision of like this is America today representing America from the past.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, Asian Americans are part of that America today. And so Lynn did not disappoint, and he put, a lot of Asians in the show. And so I do feel like I'm a part of it, even if I'm not like directly in there.
No, yeah,
But like
yeah, no,
that's
you're definitely a big part of it. Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, my dad saw like when I'm like, that's my name too. But when he was born, my dad got to see it like on his birthday, and so
oh
again, like
cool.
that was a moment. And like I saw Marcus Choi as George Washington like before I cared about representation and before I knew anything. Because again, I was little. This was like 2018, 2017. Like I was so small, or was it 2019? I can't remember, but it was, it was before I kind of had a revelation of like, oh, this is why I like this so much. This is why I want to do this so much. I was like, but it still made such a big impact. And seeing like an Asian Eliza or whatever, it's like there's so much possibility. And like talking to other Asian people like who are performers, or it's like, yeah, Hamilton, like dream show to be a part of, because it's like it's been one of those ones that has actually been good at representation with us. With Eddie and Mark De La Cruz and Marcus and everyone else who's been a part of it, more recently. And it's again, it's just so great. And talking about, you're saying about Linsanity, like, can you talk about your Linsanity slam poem? Because
Oh, yeah.
for people who have not seen it yet, Howard performed like this incredible poem about the phenomenon known as Linsanity, and there's a documentary if you want to watch it. Um, and you also, it's not just about, Jeremy Lin as a person, but you really touched on a ton of like Asian American, issues, things that we have to face just as people. And I watched it for the first time like a few days ago. I was amazed. And like, what inspired you to write it? And like, how did it feel to like truly just perform it? I mean, you can hear in the video people are responding, people are laughing, or like, oh my gosh, like it touched people so deeply just in that performance. So can you talk about that, because that is something so uniquely, Howard, like that I didn't even know you had done that yet, because it's like your first YouTube video.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it's like the two Lyns in my life. It's like Lin Manuel Miranda and Jeremy Lin.
Yeah.
I think that I didn't create that video. Like um there was just like a videographer there, and I had access to that footage. So I wasn't planning on sharing it or anything, but I'm like, oh, this video looks pretty good. And it's like it was an amazing event uh because they had a jazz band, but it was like, oh, we'll just get submissions from all these different like English majors or whoever has written a poem, like we'll like do a little selection.
Hmm.
And mine got in, and I'm not really a poet, quote unquote a poet, but I was studying poetry at that time, and I was kind of like, and like I said, I was a huge fan of In the Heights,
Yeah.
and I think I had always been a fan of hip hop, but not knowing if I could like really do it like genuinely. And after I saw In the Heights, I was like, that's it. I'm like, everything I do now is like hip hop. And so I
Yeah.
wrote all these plays where I would put a rap battle into the play because I saw it happen In the Heights. You know what I mean? Um, and to me, like, I was just having a feel. It was that era. So I was writing these raps, and so I was like, I'm gonna write a rap about Linsanity. I mean, it wasn't really a rap because there wasn't like a beat or anything, but basically like a slam. slam poetry, like hip hop inspired.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote this thing, and I didn't, you know, I didn't know how much of it was gonna like express myself, but eventually I go into all these like issues in Asian American history, and I didn't know how it would be received. I'm not a performer. I don't usually go to slam poetry nights, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and and it was my first time doing it with a band, and they had never, we didn't rehearse it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
They did have the poem. They had the poem ahead of time, so they had planned out how they're gonna like punctuate certain moments. So if you see the band, like they'll highlight certain lines and
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
planned that. They didn't tell me about it, so I kind of we were kind of like vibing.
yeah.
Um, but literally, like I just no rehearsal, I just did it, and hearing the crowd was like, oh my god, like they not only get it, but like they're 100% like you know on my side, like they know what I'm talking about. You know, I did that at USC, University of Southern California. A lot of Asian Americans at that school, so I'm sure like you know a lot of them were hearing about the same stuff they were studying, or about things that they had read about. Um so yeah, it's amazing to me that like you're talking about it, like I to me it's just like a throwaway thing that I did, but the fact that it gets to live on YouTube and gets to influence people, and frankly, you know, it's really thanks to Jeremy Lin, like putting that conversation back, because now there's so many Asians, so many more Asians in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's like uh, what's his name, Ruri Hachimura, and there's like another Yuta Watanabe, I think. Like
Mm-hmm.
so these guys are from Japan, and then you have I don't know, like Jordan Clarkson's like part Filipino, I think. You
Like
know, it's just
there's more now because of what Jeremy did. Which is like with
yeah,
everything. I mean, with theater, it's like, Lynn did something totally different with Hamilton and within the Heights, and then, subsequently people, different things were being seen instead of just the same old thing like K-pop or, a Strange Loop. Everything kind of, it wouldn't have been able to be possible without things that have come before, just like with anything.
exactly. Yeah, you need that kind of like pioneer. So
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for I call them my, actually there's three Lins. There's Jeremy Lin, Lin Manuel Miranda, and Justin Lin, who I was at UCLA when Justin
Mhm.
Lin was there, and who's later he went on to Better Luck Tomorrow, the Fast and Furious movies, you know, um, just like a great filmmaker.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah. Again, just you've, I mean, you've known so many people or have made so many connections too. Like you said, all these people on Broadway are your friends. Like these people, who's either gone to school with you or made some sort of connection where you're able to now, use that and like hang out, talk, and like talk about something that all of us really love. Because it's so funny to me sometimes when people like theater people or people in the arts pretend like they don't care as much as they do about it. I'm like, no, you are definitely a nerd and you're a geek about it. Like I know you are. Whereas like I mean I know I talk about it like so much. I mean probably too much. Just with people and sometimes people pretend they're too cool, but I'm like, no, I promise you, you're not. Like you're just like a nerd like the rest of us. Just loving something so much. And I mean even like your poetry, like with the Linsanity poem, I mean, it's like you could have, I mean, poems become songs. Like it's just kind of how things work. And it's so cool that you were able to do that through, USC and being able to really express so much about the Asian American experience through something that a lot of people, know as Linsanity, because that was such a phenomenon and it was crazy. I remember it coming out. I was so little. Again, like so many things have happened when I'm little and I recognize it now and I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. Like I don't even remember, I barely remember seeing it, but the later impact is, is there, is something that was important. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now, I can finally understand all of this stuff as an adult, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, total. I mean, yeah, these things have an effect on you that you don't even realize, and I think also the fact that he did it in New York is, really important. It's just like this is the city. You make it here, you can make it anywhere, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
so, um, yeah, and I was actually at the first preview of New York, New York, when you
Mm,
asked about like really cool events that I've been to. It's like the first preview of New York, New York, and just giving Lynn a hug and just being
aw,
like this means so much to me. That whole musical, which you should definitely see, is about immigrants coming to New York and trying to make a living through music.
mhm.
And I was like, this, like, did he write this show about me or like for me? It really
Yeah.
felt like such a warm embrace of like, you belong here, like you got to make your dreams come true.
Mhm.
So at every step, I think that things have happened for a reason. Like K-pop didn't quite work out, but it's laying the groundwork for something else. And I know Helen is like not stopping. Like Helen is so talented, and there's stuff that Helen's working on that will you know put K-pop in perspective. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I think Hannah May was like telling me like, oh, in like 50 years, like we're gonna all be sitting there at the revival of K-pop.
I hope it doesn't take 50 years,
I
but
know.
yeah.
Okay, maybe 20 years, I don't know, 10 years,
But like,
whatever.
let me be in it or something like sooner.
I hope so. I hope so. K-pop keeps changing so quickly. The genre, I mean.
Mhm.
So yeah, but we'll be there as like I was there for the first production, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's great with all of the new shows that, are centered around Asian Americans with Julie doing Coleman 72. I mean, I saw that. I was literally my dad and I were sitting in the front row and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, like this was so powerful." And Julie, again, I'm like, she is just such an incredible artist and she does so much different stuff and seeing her do that, I was like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm not even I usually do like a musical or something, but like I saw it and I was like, yeah, these are the kinds of projects that I would want to work on that means something. I mean, I just saw On This Side of the World at East West Players and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
it's amazing. Like I'm not Filipino but or Korean, but it's like I know people who are, and then like observing the different, somewhat like things that I've seen in real life portrayed on stage is kind of is pretty crazy and amazing, especially with the Filipino thing, because I have a lot like we know lots of Filipino people, and so many of the jokes were like you were like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. Whereas like people are able to see themselves through this art form, and places like East West Players that you've worked at like are doing this for people and letting people allowing audiences to be seen through an art form that usually didn't do that for us at all.
Well,
Yeah.
I have like an East West player story too, because I that's where I really grew up as a theater artist. Like first seeing shows, and then later on, like I worked for them for a little while as like a staff member, like I was doing marketing, and then later on, like yeah, being a sound designer and being kind of in like their playwriting classes and stuff like that. But what was really cool was like really early on, I like dipped my toes into acting, and I was in this. We had like this class where we were doing a production of Chekhov, and you
Mm,
go like, oh, okay, like that's so dry or whatever. But there's this like little girl, and I say little girl because she was literally in high school, and she was just like kind of like you probably, like just came to East West, came to this class filled with adults, but
mhm,
was like, oh, but I want to just like do something, and she was heading to NYU, I think, for
mm,
acting, and so she came in and she played like the smallest character. She was like the maid or whatever, but she was there for the process, and and she had so much energy, and like she was so like kind of mischievous. Like she would just like play these pranks and stuff, it was like really funny to see. I'm like, who is that person? Like, what are they gonna do? And then you sort of like cut to today. She was an Oscar nominee. I'm talking about
Mhm.
Stephanie Shu. That was
Oh,
Stephanie Shu who like literally was coming in as this had no credits or whatever, but East West Players gave her that chance to just
yeah.
kind of get her foot in there to now where she is like one of the biggest Asian American stars.
Oh,
So
yeah, definitely.
and to see that progression going like it is possible, like and for you, maybe that's something that you can think about is like she started at the place that you are now. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? So that journey for you is just beginning, but I believe that especially in today's world, it's like there's so many more opportunities. There's so many more storytellers that are actually like pursuing this,
Mhm.
and so I'm excited for you, and I just feel like the future. I keep using that quote, but it's a
Yeah,
good
I
quote.
mean, K-pop has
Yeah,
good lines in it that is like can be
well,
applied to so many things.
and the person who said that line or sang that line was Kate Mina Lee,
Statement, yeah,
who was also just out of high school. So
I know, it's
so
crazy.
yeah,
I
so
mean, I don't know if you know, but I mean, I saw Stephanie when she was like in SpongeBob as Karen the computer, and I saw her as in Be More Chill as Christine, and then I was like, oh my gosh, she's literally who I'd want to be when I grow up, kind of. I mean, I loved Christine Canigula because she was like the female lead. She got to be a nerd. She was like a theater nerd. Like she was just silly, and then seeing her, go obviously to be an Oscar nominee. That's insane that you were able to that you saw that progression from when she was young. Like that's just crazy. I mean, they're doing Spring Awakening now at East West Players, and I keep telling them, I'm like, why didn't they do this before? Because now I can't do it. I'm like, no,
Hey,
I will not be here for it. Like, why? But I'm like, I wish them the best. I hope they do like, finding a bunch of young Asian people to just do a story that like is about young people like figuring out stuff and
well, speaking of which, I'm writing a musical kind of about that right now. So it's
you
kind of
just
a crazy thing. But yeah, my the short play that I talked about for the Samuel French thing,
Mhm.
I'm expanding that into a full length, but it's really about like growing up in the San Gabriel Valley, which
Oh,
if
yeah, I
you
mean, I've kind of grown up in that area too. Like, I live in Bakersfield, but my grandparents live in Hacienda Heights. My grandma had a nursery in in Gabriel, and
yeah
I'm like, I've been in that area forever. I'm just like
yeah
growing up.
yeah exactly, and so that it's like so Asian, it's so just like our hood,
Yeah.
and to me I want to represent that in a musical. And I want to give Asian Americans a sound, like we I think for so long, like if you look at Miss Saigon or other shows, it's like Asian Americans just sound like everyone else. But I want it to sound like Asian, I feel like that's what K-pop did too. It's like it
Oh
gave
yeah, yeah.
Asian Americans a sound. And to me, I just have so much love for that place, for the music of that I grew up listening to and being Asian American, and so I wanted to honor that. And so to me, if you talk about dream projects, it's like yeah, like I wanna be. It's sort of like the In the Heights, but for the San
For
Gabriel
us,
Valley.
yeah. Yeah, no, I'm like, you have to keep me updated on that one because I'm sure my family's gonna be obsessed with that. Just because that is like our home. Like that's where we grew up kind of. I mean, yeah, I'm in Bakersfield, but like we would go like so many weekends. I mean, we were literally just there like a few days ago. Um, just, being there, being around other people and like it's such an interesting place because I'm like I've never really been anywhere like it because it's just lots of Asian people and like all my grandma's friends, all my Alma's friends are all Asian. They all come over, have parties and like jam together because my grandpa's he plays the saxophone and so he's always doing stuff.
Oh my God, what
Yeah,
a cool
I'm like
grandpa!
Yeah, he actually has long hair too. He's got like cool long hair. He's like the rock star grandpa, not traditional Asian grandparents at all.
Oh,
But
is that your dad's side or your mom's side?
my mom, everyone on my dad's
Mm.
side is a doctor, and then everyone on my mom's side is pretty much not. Some more artistic side, definitely. Except for like my
Oh,
aunt who does like acupuncture, which is still like a very Asian thing anyway. Uh, but yeah,
that's
no,
so
I'm
cool.
so happy that you're writing a musical about San Gabriel in that area. Because I mean, my dad has talked about that. Like, we don't have something just for us yet. Like for especially Chinese people too. Like, just people
Mm.
in that area. It's like we've seen so many things happen. There's been on this side of the world, Filipino. There's Coleman, like Korean. There's K-pop Korean. Like, yeah, we can see ourselves in that, but it's still not the same as fully knowing, like the having that experience. It's the same but also different. And yeah, I'm like so excited now that you're doing that because it's like again, you don't know until like usually these things you really need to like seek them out to find them or else they're gonna be hidden or not as widely known as maybe something, on Broadway or on a tour or whatever. But yeah, that's so great for you. I'm very happy about that.
That's my heart, and honestly, like growing up there is like even more of a trip because when all of your classmates are Asian American, like literally it was like half the school was Asian, the other half was Latino.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even have like black like I maybe had like one white friend and there was like maybe one black person in the entire school and it was just like everything I see on TV is black and white, black and white people, and everything I'm hearing on the radio is like black and white artists. Meanwhile, I go to school and all my friends are Asian and
Yeah.
or Latino, and it's just like what is happening? Like there's this huge disconnect. So to me, it's like such a unique time period of growing up like that, and but also just a culture like we really melded Asian and Latino and Black cultures in a way that like it's just you don't even think about that anymore because the internet makes everything available. But back then you only had the radio, you only had
Yeah.
three channels or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't quite have the experience of having all my friends be Asian because being in Bakersfield is much different than being in like San Gabriel. But yeah, that's it's such an interesting experience. I mean, you hear about people who come from Asia, from Korea or China or Taiwan or whatever. They're like, I didn't know I was a minority until I got to America. Like that's just the norm for you. And if you grow up around that, how are you ever going to know? It's like you're just comfortable in that until you get that shock of like, okay, maybe I'm not like everyone else. Maybe I'm a little different than, in America at least. Everywhere else a bit different, but in America you're like, "Oh, I see what's going on here." Like it's that shift in your mindset of just, okay, this is different. And like to kind of end it off a little, Howard, like what if you had to sum it up, like what does representation mean to you?
Yeah, I think representation means authenticity, in like really authentically representing who you are, what you believe in, and I think that there's always stereotypes, and sometimes the stereotypes are like, okay, there's some truth to that, right? But really digging a lot deeper and really saying, well, like, okay, but that stereotype is just one version of the story. Like, yeah, there were horrible things that happened in Vietnam, but that's like literally just like one version of what it means to be Asian American. Whereas there's so much joy in like growing up in the San Gabriel Valley. There's so much joy in being a K-pop fan, in being a Jeremy Lin fan or whatever, right? And so I believe in like this authentically representing yourself, of like saying we're not a monolith. There's like I could tell my story and the person next to me could have a completely different story, and both are true.
Mm.
So really, it's like we need more stories. We need more artists, more stories, and so that way we're not defined by any one story, but we get to be fully human. And I think that that's kind of why I love K-pop, right? Like that's a story that's never been told, and it was joyful and it was celebrating, not reliving past stereotypes.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot more is coming on this side of the world, which sadly I wasn't able to see, but right? It's just like all these different characters singing about their experiences, and like no one's we're all different.
That's like I always think when you were comparing different things, I always think of the Timmy X line where he's like, I am extremely generous and also selfish. Both things can be true. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I just
well,
like people, like they say, people contain, like that one rapper said, people contain multitudes.
yeah. And he's like,
Dash
oh,
Timmy X.
that's Walt Whitman. What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's yeah,
That I mean that and that's why that line is in the show,
Yeah.
because they're pointing out here's the theme of the show, which if you're open to it, you'll be able to understand, right? So I literally think that K-pop was so much doing that work, and just people were not, used to that. They were used to a stereotype, and it's like, oh, but we're not doing the stereotype. I'm really sorry. Like we're actually doing authenticity right now. And so maybe just people weren't ready for it, or they didn't understand it because it didn't fit in. But to me, like we just got to do more of that so
Yeah.
that they get used to it and they see like, oh, we should want them to be authentic. Like I literally I saw a what did I see? I saw Oh yeah, yeah. So there's a show happening right now, that's about to come to Broadway called Here Lies Love,
Yeah, of course.
which
Yeah.
I saw twice at the Public Theater, and and it's an all Filipino cast, and there's just something really beautiful about that show. And a lot of people are having issues with the show right now. It's like in the news and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But if you just put all that aside and just go like, but at the end of the day, it's like you want to see people representing, like, I'm not Filipino, but the fact that you're Filipino and that you care about this topic and that you feel represented by this topic or that art form or whatever, that's what moves me, and I would say the same thing for, like, any musical is like when you see those authentic moments.
Hmm.
It's not about kind of like the tradition of it, and or just trying to like copy something that's already been done. It's about like who are these people in this moment, the specificity of it.
Hmm.
So I feel like Asian Americans still have a ways to go because we're just, you know we're just so less, so like you said, there's not as many people going into the arts. But I think over time there has been a shift. Everything Everywhere All at Once, Parasite, and like on TV. Yeah, I mean there's a bunch of shows on TV also. Well, actually, Kung Fu just got announced that they're getting canceled. But there was Kung Fu, the company You Keep, who my friend Tim Chu's in that, and Nora from Queens. I don't know. There's like a bunch of even Beef, on Netflix, and there's
Or
there's a
like
bunch
there's
of
and then ABC just came out, American Born Chinese. That one just
yes.
released. I didn't watch it yet, but I mean that was definitely,
Oh
it's
my
out
God! Look,
I can do this. Check this out.
there.
I mean, I was a fan of it back to the original graphic novel. I don't know
Oh
if you
wow.
could see it.
Oh, I see it.
American
That's
Born
so,
Chinese.
oh my gosh, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
it was a graphic novel. But yeah, to me, like there's so many things, like I could never imagine that. And that one specifically is very Chinese American.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited. I'm
so
definitely excited for that one.
like this stuff is happening, and it's growing, and we're able to see ourselves in a way that we never dreamed of before. But I do think that like musicals are different. So to me, it's like my heart will always be in trying to represent in
Yeah.
musical theater, where you don't. It's not just about the stories and the acting and everything, but it's about the music. And so,
Yeah.
how do you represent us musically? So that's kind of my big goal.
Yeah.
And with Helen, pioneering kind of the Asian American sound with K-pop, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna keep going in that direction. I mean, I was already going in that direction, but
But you're gonna
Helen,
keep going.
we gotta keep it, like Helen gave me that fuel of like she got that far, and I know that other people can get that far too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I always talk about too, it's like representation isn't just about on the stage, it's about people behind. It's about the sound designers, the composers, the costume designers, everyone, the vocal directors, like everyone who goes into it. That's part of what it is, because if there's a story that's like Chinese or whatever and the entire creative team is white, it's like how like what it doesn't have the same impact on us and for people who are watching, especially if it just doesn't seem as authentic as it could be, because it is so different. Where K-pop, it's like so many Asian people, like Helen and then Sophia Choi, Clint Ramos, and it's different when the people really creating the art, because the artists performing can only do so much with what they're given. So if they're being given something that is inauthentic, they can't really do too much about it. But when we start from the beginning, where you're writing your own shows, you're doing all this stuff, Julie's directing, it's like then, it becomes, like you said, more authentic. It becomes something that is actually real instead of feeling like a distorted perspective of what we experience in real life. Yeah, I just think it's super cool when it does come together, where Clint Ramos, now doing Here Lies Love, and people are things are happening where people are finally getting to tell their own stories, because for so long it's been told by other people, which doesn't make really any sense, but it's the way that it's been. So yeah, we're just gonna keep on. I think I forgot who said it. I think it might have been Abraham. So like keep on keeping on or something like that.
Mm,
Um, we
yeah,
we just got to keep going. And someone
keep
will see.
going. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
but I mean, thank you so much, because I feel like you're one of those people, and to get to be a part of your journey, the little bit that I've sitting next to you during that panel discussion at
Yeah.
the last show, I was like so moved by you, because just seeing how the show affected you, I'm like, yeah, that's why I do this. That's why we all do this, is to
Mhm.
affect the next generation and to give hope to people. So
Yeah, and I
uh,
mean, I think about it even with myself. I'm like, if I didn't have this whole representation thing, would I even want to be a performer? I would get bored with myself. Like, I think I wouldn't have a drive to do anything anymore, because, you see oftentimes people might burn out or lose their sight of what they're meaning to do through through their work. And so like having, it's obviously so hard and really tough, but it's like I have something to really strive for and to work for, because it means so much to people. It means a lot to me. But if I lost that at some point, it's like then it would be very confusing, I think. Whereas like right now you're like, okay, being one of the only Taiwanese people at Boston Conservatory, like that, it's the kind of work there where you really have to just keep going and fulfilling yourself through art. And obviously being Asian isn't the biggest part of me. It's like one of the biggest, but it's like there's so many other things. It's like, yeah, I'm a performer, but you got to see me as what I see me as, in terms of casting or whatever. And for you to be like writing musicals about your own place. So anyway,
yeah.
yeah, we'll wrap up right now. But thank you, Howard, for being here, being on my podcast, and thank you so much. And how can everyone listening follow you and support your work? Obviously, we know it's like I think your Instagram is Howard Who, I believe, and then Howard Ho
Yeah.
Music, and then just how can we
Yeah.
support your personal work?
Yeah, I mean, I have a Patreon, like Howard Ho on Patreon. I think just like follow, subscribe, on YouTube. I'm on Twitter as well. Ho_Howard. I'm on TikTok, Howard Ho Music, and yeah, I mean, I just post stuff, and it's not really. I think my main thing is still gonna be YouTube. So definitely check what I'm doing there for like the main kind of meat of what I do. But yeah, I post thoughts all over the place, or pictures of me with like Broadway friends and stuff like that on Instagram. So yeah, yeah, I would love to get to meet more of the people out there, and just kind of like, you know, if anybody has questions, or wants to just feel connected to something, like, yeah, just hit me up.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone listening, go follow Howard. And thank you so much for listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. Make sure to follow me at Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw on Instagram, and Broadway_Corner on a lot of different things, TikTok, whatever, YouTube, Instagram. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.